Hi, sorry for the noise in the background. I've got an FDM printer running in the background, which is basically busy producing some noise. Today, I know you guys have been waiting for part 2 of my Voxelab Proxima Resin printer review, and the first video I did within days of getting the printer, and I was very excited. New printer, I always love gadgets anyways, so as soon as I got my hands on it, I immediately started unboxing, making a video, and then I released it, and then you guys probably thought I forgot about it. Normally that happens for either the reason that you don't like the product and suddenly all your energy goes away and you're not even interested in making another video. Oh, in my case, that first video that I did was just before Christmas, because that's when I got the printer. And then of course, with the whole situation we're going through and Christmas coming as well, I was actually using this printer to print a lot of things, but most of them were presents that I either printed for family, friends, colleagues, and that's why, and considering I was very busy at that time as well, I didn't really have much time to take pictures of everything that I was printing. So I was literally pulling things off the print pad, washing them, curing them, and the very next day probably going and giving it to someone as a present. Which basically means that this printer became my favorite. It became the workhorse for me basically, as far as the resin printing is concerned. I'm generally a FDM sort of person. I like printing a lot of big stuff, so I do a lot of FDM printing. I already have 3 FDM printers. So when I actually first decided to get a resin printer, after consulting with some friends, I decided to go for the Mars 2 Pro, because at that time everyone was talking about it. It was new, it was the one to get. It was pricey though. I mean, I'm based in the UK, so I actually ended up paying about £279 on Amazon for that printer, which is quite a lot of money. And you know, it was an impulse buy, and I thought, you know, I'll justify some way or the other on why I spent so much money on it. The only problem is, when I received it and I started using it, I realized that I wasn't printing as much resin prints as I thought I would be, and the price didn't really justify me keeping such an expensive device at home, which most of the time wasn't even running, considering it was a very busy time as well. So I went online, I looked on AliExpress, and I saw that there was the reviews between the Mars 2 Pro and the Mars Pro were sort of similar. One was a faster, slightly bigger build plate, but a lot of reviewers were saying that it's basically fine to use either of them. So what I decided to do was return the Mars 2 Pro and then buy a Mars Pro version basically. And that actually saved me quite a lot of money, because the Mars Pro was selling for about £160 on Amazon at that time during Christmas sales. So I thought, wait a second, I'm going to save quite a lot of money that way, and I don't print that much anyways, resin wise, so I thought I'll just, you know, manage. So I ordered the Mars Pro, returned the 2 Pro, and while I was doing all this research, suddenly Voxelab came onto my radar. I didn't even know that what this company was or they made anything, until suddenly on one of the Facebook groups I got added by a friend, and then I started seeing their products and I'm like, wow, they make a resin printer. And then when I did some research in it, I found out that the Voxelab Proxima resin printer, which at the time I bought it was selling for about £180 on Amazon, was very similar to the Elegoo Mars 2 Pro when it came to build size, when it came to the technology they're using. The build plate is very similar, and they have a 2K screen as well that they use. So all those things were so similar that I thought, wait a second, this printer is literally £100 cheaper than the Mars 2 Pro, and yet it's offering very similar sort of features. So let me give it a try. Worst case scenario, I don't like it. I'm ordering it from Amazon, so I can always return it, which is one of the pros of having Amazon Prime. So I went ahead and, again, impulse buy. I'm very bad at that. Managed to order the Voxelab Proxima. When I got it, I forgot to mention that when I got the Elegoo Mars Pro, I did feel a bit of a shock basically when I suddenly saw that I was going from a bigger build plate of the 2 Pro to a slightly smaller build plate of the Pro. Again, sometimes you don't realize these things, but it's always difficult to go from a higher level to a lower level, or a bigger plate to a smaller plate, even if you're not using it. So I had that sort of feeling as well. So when the Voxelab Proxima came, I was happy to see that the build plate was actually large. When it came to technology wise, they looked very similar in a lot of features. Initially I even thought that it was actually one of those copies where in some Chinese companies literally copy everything from the other one, just change the shape and a few of the things and make a new version. Because they operated very similarly, both of them to G2 Box. I know Voxelab has its own slicing software for resins as well, which I have downloaded, but to be honest I've not even used it once, because G2 Box works perfectly with this print and I'm so used to it that I've never had the basically the need to use their own slicer. Yes, so some of the features that were different from between this one and the Elegoo Mars 2 Pro, of course the USB stick on those ones is normally on the front, where this one had it on the side. Other things, the screen was very similar, the features are very similar, the way you move the bed up and down, the way you calibrate them, even I still have resin in it right now. So the ball had basically the same technology that Elegoo has in their sort of printers. There was slight difference between the linear rail and the screw that's in the back. That slightly different as well, the way it goes in. But apart from that, oh yeah, and this one doesn't have a carbon filter in the back that the Mars Pro and the Mars 2 Pro both have. Though, when it comes to that, what I have noticed is, first of all, this is in the beginning and it's quieter than the Elegoo Mars printers, because as soon as you turn those ones on, the filter starts running, the fans start turning, and they're constantly producing that noise in the background. Well, this one, the fan only starts when you start printing basically. Though the mechanism of this one is a bit louder than the Mars, because when the linear rail is moving up and down, you do tend to hear the sounds coming from it. Don't bother me that much, because as I said, I already have FDM printers at home which are more noisy than this one. Though I have seen on the Facebook groups some of the tips by some of my collaborators and their friends who have actually installed dampeners on the motor in there, and they've managed to make the noise quite less. I haven't tried that yet, because to be honest I've not felt the need to open up the printer basically. Now, when it comes to the smell, because this one doesn't have a activated carbon filter in it, whereas the Elegoo Mars do, I have actually not noticed much difference between the smells that they stop and this one doesn't apparently. I actually feel that when I'm printing on my Elegoo Mars, Pro printer, I smell the smell of the resin more than I do on this one. I don't know why. I feel like the way this one sits, the cover sits on the frame, it actually is quite airtight. It sort of blocks any fumes coming out. Whereas, if you've all noticed with the Elegumars 2 Pros, you need to install a gasket in there. But even after installing that rubber gasket, it never actually sits flush onto the body of the printer. So I think even though you've got the filter in there and everything else, the smell still leaks out compared to this one. So when it comes to smell, I'm sitting next to it right now with a vat full of resin and I'm having no issues with the smell at all. Having the USB on the front for the Mars compared to the side on this one, I found better as well, because most of the time when I'm taking a print off the bed, I will process it in front of the printer. I don't normally keep it on the dining table here. It's normally on a separate table, and my printer sits a little back, and then I've got the whole cleaning station in front of it. And with the Elegumars Pro series, I always have this issue where I feel like it's very easy to knock into that USB stick that's basically popping out from here. I have already broken one when I had recently got the printer. It was sitting on the floor and I was still setting it up, and then one of my kids actually walked nearby and just stepped on it and broke it. Luckily it didn't damage the printer's USB port, but that's one of the things I noticed with that. Whereas this one, because it's on the side, I've never had any issues with getting to it and not knocking it off. Power supplies are very similar for both of them. The way you slice, the file formats are different for the Elegumars and this particular printer, but I think for a novice it doesn't really matter. If you're more into the details, you can read up on it and see what the differences are and what they make. But as far as the printing is concerned, I have literally printed models, basically the same model with both printers, the Elegumars Pro and the Mars 2 Pro. Before I returned it, I had quite a few prints of it as well. So I have actually printed the similar objects with this one, and I've compared them, and to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, they look exactly the same. I've not seen much difference. So, takeaway from this printer is £100 cheaper than your Elegumars 2 Pro at the moment, if checking price on Amazon. It has the same build size as the Elegumars 2 Pro. It has a 2K monochrome screen as well, which the other one has as well. So I think basically, apart from the shape and of course the manufacturer, they have very similar properties. They both use G2 box, so you can slice files for both of them, and super easy to operate. So the main thing that you're getting here is you're saving £100 and getting all the features of the more expensive version. When it comes to using the printer, I have found using this one so easy as compared to the Mars that as I said, I already have a Mars Pro. To be honest, I've not touched that printer for the last 3 weeks. I've just been using this one as my main printer. As I said, I don't print that many models anyways, so I'm not in need of a lot of printers printing at the same time. So whenever I'm actually thinking of printing something, this becomes my go-to printer. Because first I get a bigger build surface, so I actually end up printing. If I have to print 2 or 3 different models, I might just fit them on one bed and just print them on this one. Secondly, I've had quite a few issues with balancing of the build plate on the Elegumars. Every time when I'm prying off a model from those build plates, for some reason, maybe after 1 or 2 times, they seem to always lose their alignment, and then you have to go and balance the bed again, which is a headache if you're reprinting at that time, because you will have a vat full of resin you will have a build plate that actually might have resin on it. So you have to literally take the vat out, you have to take the build plate off, clean it properly, and then because you can't use a dirty plate to balance, you have to bring it down, put a piece of paper and do the whole thing. And if you've got a dirty plate, you cannot do it. So you have to wash the plate, then do the balancing, then put everything back together, then start printing. And if after the second print it basically happens again, then back to square one. Whereas with this one, the last time I actually balanced the plate on this one was, I don't remember actually, it's been more than I'd say more than a month. And every time I literally print something off it, I take the plate out, I remove my print, put this back in, and start press a print to print another item. Not an issue. I've only had 2 failures on this up to now, and again it was my fault. I was printing something that was quite big, and when I went into G2 box to slice it, it even told me that the thing you're printing is exceeding the build plate. I was like, that's fine, we'll just go ahead with it. Most of the time it works. This time I think it was too big and it didn't stick for some reason. When I sliced it again and changed some of the setting, it worked perfectly. So no problems with that as such. No issues when it comes to balancing the build plate, no issues when it comes to printing continuously one after the other. Smell, no issues with that as well. It is very robust, it's made of aluminium. Body, screen is fine. Literally, I would say, I'm not sure why this printer is not even becoming as popular right now as all the others that are in the market, Anycubics and your frozen ones and your Creality ones, because in my opinion, this quality wise, this is probably above the level that they are on right now. And the printing quality is perfect. The managing of the whole printer is so easy. It's foolproof literally. So I will be posting pictures of many of my prints that I've done now, because as I said, a lot of them went as presents, so I never managed to take pictures because it was a busy time. But I have made, especially I've printed things in the last few days on this printer, so I can show them to you guys, to just show you the quality that I'm getting. I haven't really prepared those models that much. I've literally just printed them, washed them, cured them, and taken pictures of them so I could basically share with you. So I do apologize if you see some rookie mistakes on them. You'll see some the supports that haven't been removed properly. Again, when it comes to resin printing, it does require quite a lot of post-processing after you've actually printed your items, because you need to remove the supports, you might need to do a little bit of sanding, then you prime them, paint them, where I'm a bit slow. So I have them ready. I am literally just waiting for an opportunity to start painting them basically, but I didn't want to leave that and just leave you guys hanging waiting for part 2 of my review basically, without actually telling you that this printer is amazing. I would say it is a very good buy, especially for the price you're paying. I would definitely recommend it, and I would say this will be a good partner for you guys, especially if you're trying to save some money and don't want to basically spend an extra $100 on a more expensive one. So go for it, give it a go, and I know you won't regret it. Ciao.